Camille Abbe. In this series, I'm going to explore the vibrant culture of the Tuscan countryside. Together, we'll visit some of the artisans, chefs, and farm holiday inns the Italians call agriturismo that all contribute to making Tuscany such an enchanting region. In today's episode, we'll begin with a festival in Cortona, and then stop into the nearby town of Bettole. Every May, the hill town of Cortona holds a 2-week-long festival that culminates with a crossbow contest between the town's quintieri, or 5 neighborhoods. Most of the town turns out in exquisitely crafted Renaissance costumes that evoke different traditional professions and social classes. The festival dates back to the 1397 wedding between 2 prominent local citizens, Francesco Casali and Antonia Salambini, and every year their roles are played by a young couple that presides over the crossbow contest. After they arrive, the drum corps marches around the square and welcomes the competing archers. Next, the young flag throwers show off their skills. They seem to be having a few problems today. But often enough, one of them gets it just right. Finally, when everyone has arrived, the crowd hushes and the archers begin to shoot round after round of darts at a small wooden target. I have to admit, I thought it was cheating to have both an assistant and a cradle for the crossbow, but given how long it takes to aim and shoot, I guess it must be harder than it looks. Anything but a bullseye is considered a failure. After the judges make their decisions and the points are tallied, the winning quintieri is awarded the golden dart and, perhaps more importantly, wins bragging rights for the year. They celebrate with a victory march out of the square in the same way that it has been done for more than 600 years. The costumes worn during the festival in Cortona are reproductions made by local designer Roberta Muzzi. Starting with illustrations from books, she then sketches her own designs and makes each piece to order using the luxurious velvets and brocades that are still produced in Tuscany's mills. In the small workshop, seamstresses hand-stitch the costumes when they're not filling orders for Prada and other well-known Italian brands. Roberta's meticulously crafted costumes are an essential part of the Cortona festival and pay fitting tribute to Tuscany's Renaissance glory. I'll continue my travels by visiting the town of Montelpulciano and the surrounding countryside. Montelpulciano is a well-preserved hilltop town set amidst a landscape of sheep pastures and vineyards. The town holds several well-known festivals every year, including one devoted to singing and another in which citizens stage amateur theater productions. Near the center of town stands Pulcinella, ready to ring his bell every 30 minutes. He was a gift from a grateful bishop of Naples who spent several years in Montelpulciano in exile for inappropriate behavior. Beneath the streets lies one of the best-known features of Montelpulciano, the network of ancient caves and cellars that are used to store and age the town's famous wine. Vino Nobile di Montepulciano. I'm here in the Cantina del Redi in the heart of Montepulciano. There are a lot of cellars you can visit here in town, but I think this one's really spectacular. The Cantina del Redi was built over 500 years ago around the site of an Etruscan tomb. The cellars were carved out of the soft rock known as tufa, then buttressed with brick arches and columns. The cellar maintains a year-round temperature of 54 degrees with 75% humidity, which is perfect for storing and aging wine. The barrels of Vino Nobile wine will age here for several years before bottling. During that time, the wine will absorb the barrel's oak flavor, adding complexity and softening the tannins. After exploring the cool, damp cellar, you emerge into the modern enoteca, where you can taste all the wines that were aged down below. Wine is Montepulciano's most famous product. But I discovered something here that is much harder to find. In the old wine cellar of this building off the main square, Cesare Mazzetti continues the 10,000-year-old tradition of coppersmithing, using techniques and tools that have changed little for centuries. He creates beautiful cooking utensils and many other items. He also loves to flirt with his female visitors.
Io gli do la foglia, e anche a questa. E voi siete le rose.
Le rose.
Here he's making me a little charm marked with my and my sweetheart's initials.
È caldo? Sì, sotto.
Questa stasera mettere sotto
Sotto cuscino.
dormire,
Sì.
sognare
Sì.
e poi...
Later, he fired up his old-fashioned forge to demonstrate how he puts the finishing touches on a cooking pan.
Anticamente ci voleva uno sempre a girare, perché se uno non gira, uno che ha pentole grosse...
Here he's tinning a sauté pan by heating it and rubbing tin around the inside. The stick of tin melts instantly when in contact with the extremely hot pan. Copper cooking pans must be tinned because copper on its own has a chemical reaction with many foods. Mazzetti also shows me the difference in the finish after the copper is buffed to a shine. In his nearby shop, run by his wife, there's an astounding range of copper items, all handmade by him. He liked to joke that the bigger the pan, the more obedient the husband. Montepulciano is the site every August of an unusual competition called the Bravio della Botti. Pairs of men from the town's 6 neighborhoods run through the steep cobbled streets while pushing 140-pound empty wine barrels. It may be simple, but it's not easy. Preparations for the Bravio begin months in advance when the 2 best athletes from each neighborhood are chosen. Andrea and Cristiano are both marathon runners. Training consists of pushing the huge barrel up and down these steep country roads for 2 hours without a break, at least twice a week. Their coach runs alongside them the whole time to give advice on how to handle the barrel. Even from a distance, I could tell that he was not always happy with their technique. At least they had 2 months to get it right. Leaving the barrel rollers to their workout, I returned to town and visited the workshop of a mosaic master, Ambrosio Zamparo.
Italiani del mosaico, ma gente improvvisata così.
Mosaic art was originally developed by the ancient Greeks and then perfected by the Romans, who created marble mosaics that survive to this day.
Io ho lavorato prima in un laboratorio in 20, poi in 5, poi in 2, poi solo 10 anni, 12 che sono solo.
Zamparo works with glass, which comes from the Venetian island of Murano. He told me that when he began working mosaic over 30 years ago, there were 15,000 colors to choose from. Now there are less than 9,000. Today he's making a copy of a mosaic he made years ago, itself a copy of a painting in Montepulciano's cathedral. For every mosaic, Zamparo hand-cuts hundreds, even thousands of tiny pieces of glass, called smalti, reshaping them to fit into his design exactly. How small he chooses to make the smalti will determine the intricacy of the finished mosaic. He works only on commission, and, since cutting more smalti requires more time, his client's budget is the only determinant of the quality of the finished work. This mosaic he's working on is not as fine as the one he made before, but it is still slow, exacting work. It will take him months to complete a piece like this one. Zamparo's work is incredible, and I later went to a small church on the outskirts of Montepulciano that I was told promised an equally inspiring experience. The Church of Santa Maria della Grazia is the home of a small 16th century pipe organ that is the only one of its kind found in Italy. Its pipes are made of cypress rather than metal, producing a soft, rich sound. Judy Diodato, a local organist, gave me a private
È
concert.
impossibile perché richiedono più tastiere, molti registri e poi la pedaliera intera. Questo ha soltanto questi pedali. Ok.
Unfortunately, the organ is rarely played, and it, like many pipe organs here, is slowly deteriorating. Judy said she had once played an organ that had sat idle for so long that mice ran out of the pipes when she began to play. But for now, at least, its beautiful sound is alive and well. Just south of Montepulciano is the Val d'Orcia, a dramatic and spare place marked by rolling wheat fields, cypress-lined roads, and ruins of farmhouses. Thousands of years of cultivation have shaped the land, leaving behind the valley's distinctively eroded hills and cliffs. The Val d'Orcia is beautiful, but its lack of rain and dense clay soil makes it unsuitable for the grapevines that thrive only a few miles away. But these dry hills hide secret gifts from nature. Sulfurous hot springs. This is Bagno San Filippo, a spa tucked up against the side of Monte Amiata in the southern reaches of the Val d'Orcia. The steaming hot water feeds from underground geothermal pockets into these pools. Most guests soak in the water to just relax and rejuvenate, but some are here on doctor's orders for arthritis and other ailments. Bagno San Filippo is beautiful, but in the woods below the spa, I think it gets even better. The springs that are tapped for paying customers at the spa run free and feed waterfalls and natural pools. The water is so rich in calcium that it leaves behind striking formations, such as the giant 70-foot-tall Fosso Bianco. Walking 10 minutes downstream, I found a secluded spot where milky white 80-degree water cascades into a series of shallow pools that are perfect for soaking. Another Val d'Orcia spa is Bagno Vignoni, which has dramatic views of a nearby castle. The Vignoni Springs were discovered by the Romans, and until fairly recently, this pool in the center of town was where all the bathing took place. Lorenzo de' Medici himself is said to have soaked here to ease his painful case of gout. The hot springs of the Val d'Orcia have been sought by people for millennia. Pilgrims traveling the dusty trail to Rome stopped here to restore their bodies and renew their spirits. Not every visitor needs a hot spring for that purpose. Many just need a quiet farmhouse, and for that, the Val d'Orcia is perfect. The few farmhouses in the valley often sit alone, with commanding views of the countryside. Many of them have been converted into agriturismos, offering guests solitude only a few miles from Montelpulciano. One notable agriturismo is the estate of La Foce, a collection of 8 magnificently restored houses. La Foce was purchased in 1923 by Iris and Antonio Arrigo, and at that time the estate comprised about 8,000 acres of land here in the Val d'Orcia. Iris Arrigo was the author of several books about her life at La Foce. But her most famous work was The Merchant of Prato, a recounting of the life of an Italian merchant during the Renaissance, based on his original letters and documents. Today, La Foce is maintained by Arrigo's children, who every summer host a classical music festival on the property. Across the Val d'Orcia, only a few miles from La Foce, a very different agriturismo beckons. The Torre Tarugi is an actual medieval lookout that was once one of a series of towers used to signal the approach of enemy forces. Built around 1200, the tower now has all the modern conveniences while still maintaining its overall medieval character. It might just be the perfect place to stay if you're looking to live out a medieval fantasy. Just a little to the west of La Torre is the small town of Pienza. In 1458, native son Aeneas Piccolomini became Pope Pius II, and with his newfound power, he set about transforming the rustic village of his birth. First, he changed the name to Pienza from Corsignano. Then, he had the town rebuilt along the Renaissance architectural ideals of harmony and grace. The result is a beautiful central piazza dominated by a towering cathedral and several notable palazzi. Pienza is also famous for its pecorino, a sheep's milk cheese that comes in dozens of varieties. I visited a nearby farm. Here in these rolling green hills, the Caguzzi family makes pecorino cheese. They're originally from Sardinia, and they've been here for about 35 years. They tell me that they moved here because the land is very fertile and it makes a really rich milk.
It's okay. So the sheep run in, they put their head in, start eating, lashes them down, and then they back them up so that they can just pop, 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 and start getting the milk right out.
In another building, the fresh milk is made into cheese. Rennet, an enzyme from the stomach of young calves, is added to the milk, which quickly separates into curds and whey. The curds are then put into round molds that solidify into young pecorino. The rounds of new cheese are then aged in the cool cellars below. Pecorino cheese is one of the foundations of the cuisine of the Val d'Orcia, along with wine and pasta. At the nearby agriturismo Palazzo Bandino, Chef Luciano Benocci shows some of the guests how to make the typical local pasta called pici. Flour, egg, water, oil, and salt are the only ingredients. The exact ratio of these ingredients is impossible to specify. Experienced hands do it by feel. After kneading the dough, it is tested by this method. If it leaves a mark and is springy, it's ready to be cut and rolled into pici.
Poi andiamo a pisciare, va fatto con il palmo della mano, tenendo ben presente.
What makes pici special is how it is formed, using the palm of the hand to roll the dough into uneven noodles.
Few drops of oil, then add the pici.
The pasta that results is thick and chewy and a perfect foil for simple tomato-based sauces, or the more unusual white sauce known as briciole. Briciole is a thrifty peasant sauce made of just breadcrumbs, garlic, and olive oil, and is a reminder of how poor the people of this area once were. Simple and delicious, pici con briciole is a classic example of the cuisine of the Val d'Orcia. At the far western edge of the Val d'Orcia stands the impressive Castello di Ripa d'Orcia. The word ripa means steep, and it's obvious why the castle on this spot over the river Orcia got its name. Much of the castle has been rebuilt and added to over the centuries, but records show that the original structure has stood here since at least 1200. In the Middle Ages, when governmental authority was weak or non-existent, castles like this were essential to local security and gave their owners power and prestige. Ripa d'Orcia's commanding position made it virtually unconquerable, and peasants from nearby villages sought refuge inside its walls when enemy armies attacked. In 1484, the castle was purchased by the Pienza-based Piccolomini family. The family has owned it ever since, and only recently transformed Ripa d'Orcia into an impressive agriturismo. Beautifully restored and with incredible views, the castle is one of the Val d'Orcia's most unforgettable destinations.